happy looking untucked shirt. Untucked shirts made to fall at the perfect length. Untuckit.com. Code HERD, 20% off, HERD. So last night, Draymond Green was all in this scuffle stuff with Rondo, and he's all over the floor, and he's doing stuff. And at the end of the half, Charles Barkley and the funny guys, Shaq and Ernie and Kenny Smith on TNT, Barkley went crazy, and it was pretty funny. It was good TV. Everybody laughed. Now all the snowflakes are freaking out. Oh, my God, I can't believe what Charles Barkley said. Oh, stop. You watch late-night television? You watch Netflix, Amazon Plus? Do you see what's on television? It's grown-ups. It nights for grown-ups. Kids go to bed. It nights for grown-ups that can handle swearing and like lively political talk and Charles Barkley being a television performer. This is television. I'm performing. Okay, here's Charles Barkley last night. Everybody's freaking out.
Some friendly chatter between Rajon Rondo and Draymond Green.
That's what you want to call it?
What do you want to call it, Chuckster?
I just want somebody to punch him in the face. I really do. I just want somebody to punch him in the face. Why, you don't like Draymond?
DOJ in Atlanta.
I want to punch him in the face.
Why you don't like Draymond?
I'm just telling you, I want to punch his ass in the face. I do.
Why?
Relax,
what makes you upset?
You asked me a question. I gave you
I didn't ask you to punch him. You said, I said, why?
When Chuck get like that, just leave him alone.
No, I like it.
By the way, why do I watch TNT and not ESPN? That guy. That's why he makes millions of dollars. He's a television performer, and it was funny, and everybody laughed. But let me defend Draymond Green, who I love. We celebrated guys like Draymond Green 20 years ago, and all you've told me during LeBron James' great run is, man, the 90s NBA was tough guys, man. There was defense. Michael Jordan never got a free pass to the rim. 90s, 30 for 30. I watched it last night. 30 for 30 is awesome. I love watching those 30 for 30s with tough guys. That's the way basketball should be played. And then you get a guy that plays like that. Wait a minute. He's too rough with Rondo, and he's always fighting. Charles Barkley, you know you're performing for TV because you know, Charles Barkley, that you had Draymond Green in you. You just had way more talent. You were Draymond Green with a million times more talent. Draymond Green is 1992 NBA. Everybody wants a dose of it, and then you give them a little dose, and they get uncomfortable with it. It's like self-driving cars. My whole life, all I've heard about is cars are going to fly and self-driving cars, and then we bring them out. There's a really serious accident, and everybody's like, ooh, no, we can't have self-driving cars. There's going to be 50 accidents today in California on the road. Cars get into collisions. You want self-driving cars, they're not going to be perfect. It's like everybody wants the corner office with a nice view. You ready for 70 hours a week there, champ? A lot of pressure. May get fired. Everybody's looking at you, criticizing you on social media. Oh, you don't like that? Then go to the small cubicle. Draymond Green is 1992 basketball, and I love him. Do you want this league to be only about guys who can jack up 28-footers? I think he's an incredible component to Golden State's team. He adds a dimension. He adds a layer. It's something else you got to deal with. He's going to kick and scratch and nudge and elbow, and I love Draymond Green because I love the 1992 NBA and the 1988 NBA, and I love the NBA now. But I don't want to have a sport. I don't want baseball to be all small, speedy guys who steal bases. I want some long balls, some speedy guys, some double guys, some starters and closers. I don't want the NFL to just be big, strong. I like small, speedy guys at the slot receiver. I like Russell Wilson running around a little bit. I mean, you tell me these 30 for 30s on ESPN are so great. Well, they're filled with NBA basketball, which is wrestling matches. And guys that have very little skill that are beating up on each other. Isn't Charles Oakley and the late Anthony Mason legends in New York City? Neither could shoot from 9 feet away. Everybody wants the self-driving car, but you don't want what comes with it. Everybody wants a tough guy. You get a little bit of it, and everybody's like, I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't like it. This is too much for me. Draymond Green is why Golden State's going to beat Houston. Because, by the way, Houston can shoot threes too. And Golden State can hit threes. Draymond is going to be a pain in the butt. And that's why he makes this rivalry perfect. He's the Rodman on the Pippen Jordan Bulls. You couldn't have 9 Magics. You couldn't have 6 Michaels. Only had 1 basketball. You need Draymond Green. I love him. And Barkley, although I think he's a riot, Draymond is Barkley without the skill. Charles was a tough guy. Jenny with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
It's just pure entertainment. That's what's the best about it. And for Draymond, you know he loves it, too, to be called out like that.
Of course.
Loves the attention.
Of course.
Soaking it up. All right, I'm going to start with someone that you love, Colin. Let's talk a little bit more about Steph Curry. He was finally back last night.
Oh.
He'd been out. I know, it felt good to see him back out
Yes.
there, right? And, you know, he missed 6 weeks with that knee injury, and it was as if he didn't miss a beat. He came off the bench, scored 28 points, a roaring ovation from the fans, and really he deserved it. This is what he had to say about his performance after the game.
It was an eternity, it felt like, for sure. You know, when the guys come back on out the starting lineups, you're usually in the you know, that goal kind of mind frame, and I had to kind of pace myself and be patient with it. Seemed like it took forever, but it was a good feeling to get back out on the floor and just let loose and have fun.
I hadn't thought about it, Colin, until you brought it up at the beginning of the show, how he handled coming off the bench, and it made me respect him even more.
Oh, God, that is just what I love about Curry. That he not only is willing to come off the bench, but he's like, hey, I want to recruit Kevin Durant to my team,
Yeah.
knowing that I'll get less shots, less attention, less points, and by the way, I'll probably be the second best player on our team. That's a very secure person. I always say in my business, the secure people in my business are trying to help others.
Yeah, confidence.
Not badmouth them. Like you're trying to help people. Steph Curry's like, oh, I get another great player? Yeah, I want him. Westbrook's like, I don't recruit. Derrick Rose, I don't recruit. Well, then you end up getting beat in the first round. Yeah. That's what happens.
Yeah, it was really special. All right, last night on the other side of things, LeBron didn't have a good night. We already mentioned it a bit. He said that the injury, Game 7, prevented him from his usual pregame routine.
Yeah.
He said that the shots weren't going in. He did thank his teammates for carrying him, which was definitely the case. And this is what J.R. Smith said about LeBron after their win.
All right.
We just got to keep chipping in as much as we can. He can't be Superman every night. He had some good looks. He just didn't fall. And Kyle hit a big shot. Kev hit shots. It's our job to pick him up.
Can't be Superman always.
I want J.R. Smith on my show at some point. I think he'd be a fun guy to hang with. Dude, that guy has lived a life.
Yeah.
High school to the NBA. Was at Denver, and then the mess in New York, and then LeBron James. And last night, he was huge. I'm going to tell you something. Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith, when they're shooting like that, that's when Cleveland's a handful because they're not great players right now, but they are great shooters. And you get Korver and J.R. Smith humming, it's like, okay, then LeBron is on the best team in the East. Now, it's not happened regularly, but when you see it last night, in those spurts, you're like, okay, nobody in the East is beating this team if they do that.
Yeah. And finally, I know how you feel about Toronto. Maybe a bit boring to you, Colin, but someone who was trying to make things interesting was rapper Drake, entertainer rapper Drake.
No.
He's also a global ambassador to the team. Here's what supposedly happened. He got into it with Cleveland backup center Kendrick Perkins. The story goes from two sides. Perkins was messing with his former teammate Ibaka. Drake thought those words were directed towards him. This started at halftime. It ended up continuing till after the game. And I was thinking about it. Perkins, he's what, 6'10"? I mean, roughly, right?
Yes.
Drake's pretty tough with like a group of security guards.
Yeah, Drake is the Raptors. Talented, but, I mean, come on.
But not that tough. He was on Degrassi. Do you remember that? Did you watch
He's a
that?
nice guy. He's a great talent, and Toronto's a bunch of good dudes.
I don't know.
But come on, this is not a good look for Drake.
I never
We're
really
all saying the
liked
same
Drake.
thing this morning. Drake, you really want to take on Kendrick Perkins, Drake, by yourself? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kendrick Perkins is one of the toughest dudes in this league. If you took the toughest 20 guys in the league, Kendrick Perkins is one of them. He's a tough guy, and he's 6'10", 268. You don't want anything to do with Kendrick Perkins.
No, and the sadder part of the story is really that's the most exciting thing coming out of Toronto. So that's the news.
Jenny with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
Via the Coward Global Satellite Network from New York City, my friend Nick Wright, co-host First Things First. Let me start with the Draymond Green Barkley stuff, because you've been critical of Barkley before. I think he's a great television performer, and I thought that was a great television moment where Shaq and Ernie and Kenny are playing into Charles being kooky Charles. And I also love Draymond Green. I don't think you do. What did you make of the moment?
Listen, if I'm being totally honest, I have felt similar feelings that Barkley felt last night, particularly watching Draymond Green execute what I believe was a figure-4 leg lock on Anthony Davis. But those are typically things you keep to yourself and you don't say on national television. Now, Charles Barkley has made a remarkable career on being allowed to say things on TV. None of the rest of us are. And by the way, I have been critical of some of Charles's opinions, but I've also sat with Charles and had a drink and told him that I think his LeBron James opinion is terrible, and he argued with me and we laughed. I think Charles is the best in the business at what he does. I have tremendous respect for him as a player and as a performer. I just think his basketball analysis is subpar, even if we might have some similarities on, in a perfect world, people that maybe could be punched in the face.
Yeah. It was just a moment where he said it. And listen, Charles understands TV as well as anybody. This is the gift of Terry Bradshaw. This is the gift of people that are high achievers in our business.
Yep.
It is television. We need to have fun. And Charles is always a lot of fun. And by the way, is a very nice guy when you meet him. As Nick told you,
he's the best.
I guarantee you that he bought Nick's drink. Did he not?
That is exactly right. He refused to allow me to pay. Listen, he's great. And I met him and I said, Chris had kind of made the introduction and I had said, hey, listen, there's an opportunity face to face. I have to tell you, I've been critical about you on these things. So I told him what they were. He stops the entire bar. He's like, everybody, this guy thinks LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. He's the best. He's sometimes a kook, but he's the best. I love Charles.
Okay. Yeah, I'm watching Steph Curry come out last night, and he is a conductor. I don't have to start. I won't take a bunch of shots. And I'm like, if Russell Westbrook could take 15% of that and play more joyfully and celebrate. Like, I look at Curry, and when I watch Curry, I see Westbrook because I see what Curry does, and I think that's what a point guard does. Share, call Kevin Durant, recruit him, pass, efficiency. And you're not buying any of it, are you?
Well, listen, that's great that's what you see when you see Steph Curry, that's what you see. What everyone else sees when they see Steph Curry is the greatest shooter ever to live, and that's what makes Steph Steph. Yes, he's a good passer, and he's an extraordinary ball handler, and he seems to be a man of God and a great family man, and I guess a great recruiter. But what makes Steph Steph is what we saw the moment he walked on the court. He's the greatest shooter ever to walk this planet Earth, and that's what makes him special. Asking Russ to be that, you may as well ask Russ to be Joel Embiid. He's not 7'2". He also is not the greatest shooter ever. In fact, he's a relatively poor range shooter. Like, I'm not going to ask Russ to be Steph. Yeah, listen, I know, and you know how much I love you, Colin, but in Colin Cowherd's perfect world, there are two basketball players, LeBron James and Steph Curry, and they're duplicated for every team at all times. Maybe a couple Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant's mixed in, but we don't get that. Sometimes guys are going to have warts and flaws, and that's the reality in which at least I live in the NBA.
By the way, you did text me the other day and said I may have been right in a couple of Westbrook points.
Listen, you may have been a little ahead of the curve on some of the Westbrook stuff.
Okay, so I'm watching last night, and LeBron's been the asteroid that kills the baby dinosaurs. The asteroid didn't even land on the planet last night. It just flew by, and the baby dinosaurs still curled up. I mean, I watched that game last night, and I was actually, with about 8 minutes to go, I'm like, if Toronto loses this will literally define the series and the franchise going forward. Am I overreacting?
Listen, it's the biggest game the franchise has played since the day Vince Carter went to his graduation and then missed the shot in Game 7. Now, if you remember 2 years ago, the Cavs, after winning 10 straight games to start the playoffs, this is one of the first times I ever did television with you, Colin. Everyone was flipping out because the Cavs had lost 2 straight to Toronto. And I said to you, the minimum number of games you can take to win your conference is 12. It's going to take the Cavs 14, and that's exactly what they did. LeBron gave a very prescient quote after the Raptors won 2 games against them 2 years ago. He said, I've been in a lot of adverse situations. This ain't one of them. That's how he disrespected the Raptors 2 years ago. Last year, first quarter, game 1, J.R. Smith is throwing off the backboard alley-oops in transition. That's how they disrespected him last year and this year. Whether it was the massive comeback about 6 weeks ago or what we saw last night, there is a mental block in Toronto when they see LeBron James on the court. Colin, they missed 11 straight shots to finish regulation.
Oh.
They had 16. How about this? 16 shots in the fourth quarter within 5 feet. They made 3 of them. LeBron's terrible game, the worst game he's had all postseason, he still individually outscored them in the final 4 minutes of regulation. Like, they can't beat him. The Pacers were a tougher matchup. The Heat would have been a tougher matchup. They cannot beat him. Their players know it. Their coach knows it. Everyone in Drake knows it. It's why he's trying to fight Kendrick Perkins. They can't beat him. It's simple as that, man.
Listen, I said this to start my show. When it comes to the Eastern Conference, there's only 3 things I want to talk about. 1 superstar player, LeBron, 1 superstar coach, Brad Stevens, and 1 prodigy, Ben Simmons. When I watched what Brad Stevens did the other night with Aaron Baines, Shane Larkin, a 20-year-old, and I believe an end table, and they pounded rested Philly, it made me go, wait, time out. I mean, I like what Philly's doing. I was wrong, but I got to tell you something. No Kyrie, Gordon, no Jalen, and thumped Philly on no rest. Nick, it made me think to myself, Philadelphia is not getting past this team for a long, if you can't beat Boston now, you're not beating them next year. Am I overreacting?
Okay, well, they might still get past them this year. Losing the first game on the road doesn't end the series if you're Philadelphia, but that was a coaching tour de force by Boston. I've talked to some general managers or coaches in the league that say they view Boston as a team that starts every game up 10-0 because of what Brad Stevens is going to design out of timeouts and how his team is going to execute at the end of quarters. It's a 10-point edge against almost every team in the league. Philadelphia is a well-coached team. Brad Stevens had his team more ready. It also makes you wonder how the only downside is you wonder how much better they get even with improved talent. How much better will Kyrie be than what Stevens is getting out of Terry Rozier? The reason I'm not ready to give the conference to Philadelphia or to Boston for the next decade is LeBron's going to have something to say about that if he stays out east, particularly if he goes to Philadelphia. Now, I know for some reason you think there's 13 players that are a better fit in Philadelphia than the LeBron James, including, I would imagine, Robert Covington, who right now he'd be taking his minutes in Philadelphia.
Right.
I don't feel that way. I think that if LeBron goes to Philly, they are the overwhelming favorites. But what we know is this. If every team in the NBA disbanded and there was an expansion draft for a new league, the first coach taken and a guy who would be taken after only about 10 or 12 players is Brad Stevens. That's how valuable he is. That's how good he is.
Yeah, I agree. His name is Nick Wright. Show is First Things First. And love to hear about your Charles Barkley buying you a drink story, my friend. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you as well. Thank you, Colin.
You bet. Yeah, Barkley last night, if you're just turning into the show, he's a television performer. This doesn't bother me at all. He's going to get some pushback, but this is why television's been neutered. You know, to me on cable, let it fly, let it rip. I can deal with swearing. I'm a grown-up. That's why I go to Netflix, Amazon Plus, Hulu. I like when shows on the network roll the dice. If a few people complain, who cares? I wasn't offended at all by this from Charles Barkley.
Some friendly chatter between Rajon Rondo and Draymond Green.
That's what you want to call it?
What do you want to call it, Chuckster?
I just want somebody to punch in the face. I really do. I just want somebody to punch him in the face. Why you don't like Draymond?
J in Atlanta.
I want to punch him in the face. Why you don't like Draymond? I'm just telling you, I want to punch his ass in the face. I do.
Why?
Relax,
What makes you upset?
You asked me a question. I didn't ask you, do you want to punch him? You said, I said, why? When Chuck get like that, just leave him alone. No, I like him.
That's TV. That's why Terry Bradshaw's a star, okay? It's funny. We laugh. It's funny. Nobody got hurt. Charles didn't even say, I want to punch him in the face. Charles said, I want somebody else to punch him in the face. I think it's great. Coming up next, Wow. Couple football stories here. One of them, I am going to completely support somebody who I'm not sure if you'll believe it or not, but completely universally support a player and a franchise that I love has changed their identity. Couple of stories this morning break. That's next. Listen, 66% of men lose their hair by age 35. God, I feel lucky today. When you start to notice hair loss, it is too late. Easier to keep what you had than replace the hair you lost. That's why you go to 4hims.com. It's a one-stop shop, 4hims.com, for skincare, hair loss, and sexual wellness. Listen, thanks to science, baldness is optional. 4hims connects you with real doctors and medical-grade solutions. Okay? There's no awkward doctor visit. Just go to 4hims, answer a few quick questions. Doctor reviews it, prescribes your product, shipped directly to your door. And right now, for $5, that's it, you get a trial month of 4hims. Go to their website, 4hims.com/Colin, 4hims, F-O-R-H-I-M-S, 4hims.com/Colin. There's no snake oil pills here, no gas station counter supplements. Well-known generic equivalents. 4hims.com/COLIN.
It's the shot of his life. What a gem. Watch out for this one. Expect anything different?
It's Aces.